Two of your faces are familiar to me, so I came to MOPS probably, how old are my kids? 5 and 7. So 4 years ago, I guess is when I started coming to MOPS. I came simply because I just needed to get away from the children, right? I just needed my hour by myself. So I actually was sitting in my truck when I got here and saw so many of you guys getting out with like the carrier on the arm and then the little one beside you and like the slow walk, and I actually had a hot minute of like a little bit emotional of kind of missing those days, right? And it just kind of goes so fast, whereas my day this morning was getting them up, kicked out the door, and on the bus. Like, it's just a bunch of different pace of life. So I know sometimes this stage of life is super overwhelming and you're exhausted and everything's a lot of work right now. But it does go really fast. So I would encourage you that this season of littles, of carriages and little feet that move super slow, it goes quickly. And suddenly they're walking ahead of you and it goes fast. And I remember saying that what do they always say? The days are long, the years are short, right? It actually is true, believe it or not. So enjoy this season. So what I'm here to talk about today is something that I just finished going through and still kind of going through. I was a surrogate for my cousin. So 3 weeks ago, I had a baby, and as you can see, I don't have a baby with me. So he is with his family, and it's been a whole, I don't want to call it a hot mess of a journey, but I think it kind of was a hot mess of a journey. And I wanted to share it with as many people as I can. One, because it was a pregnancy journey. And I think a lot of us need to just share our pregnancy journeys because pregnancy is hard. And it's also something that, I mean, obviously it's normal because we have to get pregnant with babies. But oftentimes I don't feel like we actually share the struggles of what pregnancy is, of what postpartum is, and how do we actually move through this together. And when I asked what the theme was this year, it was we go together, right? So I asked what the theme was, and I kind of had these ideas bubbling in my head of what I could have wanted to chat about. And then she said we go together. And I was like, well, isn't that interesting? Because my whole reason of doing surrogacy was because I wanted to give my cousin the opportunity to be a mom so that we could kind of do this thing together, right? So it all kind of like fit together. So I'll rewind you guys all the way back to why I did this, because that's usually the first question people want to know is why on earth would you do this crazy thing? So I did this because I only did this because God clearly told me to do this. I am not a person who liked pregnancy. In fact, I hated pregnancy. I don't, in fact, really love babies all that much, to be honest. I love toddlers. I love an 8 or 9-year-old kid. That is my jam. That is where I sit. So I didn't do this because, 20 years ago I had this deep longing to do this adventure. That was never it. But it came into our lives, and I felt such a strong call that this was what I had to do. And I'm not sure if where everyone sits faith-wise, but like my faith is my thing that anchors me. It's what pulls me through. And when I talked to God about this, the answer was such a resounding yes that I almost wanted to re-ask the question. Are you sure? You're sure it's yes? We could discuss this and think about it. But it was such a strong yes. So how we got to that point was my cousin and her husband were over one night for dinner about 3 years ago. My daughter was 2, so yeah, about 3 years ago. And we got chatting about life, and they shared with us their journey of fertility issues, where they were at, and that surrogacy may be something that they had to do. So this wasn't yet where they were, but it was a discussion they were having. And that night, after they left, my husband and I were sitting outside by the fire, and I was like, would you ever do that? Would you ever consider us doing that? And again, this is never something that we've talked about. And he said, well, what about you? It's kind of bigger for you. It's your body. And I was like, yeah, I think I would. That's weird that I'm saying yes. That's not what I thought I would say in this situation. But I was like, yeah, I think I would actually consider it. At that time, our daughter was 2. So do you guys know when you're in that stage? I don't know how many of you guys have done. How many of you guys know you're done having babies and you don't want any more? Okay, right, okay. So you know when you're done and you get this sense of that's it, we're done. We don't want to have any more. We don't want to, play the game. We want to be done. Our daughter was 2. And we didn't really know yet if we were done. right? We were our son was 4, she was 2. We were kind of getting out of that baby stage, that little bit of freedom was hitting, but we weren't really sure. So I said, I think I would say yes, but not right now. Like, I couldn't say yes and do this for them and not know that I'm done with my own family yet. So that happened about 3 years ago. And then about a year and a half ago, it was cold and it was snowy out. So it was winter. It was January 2021. So that's where we were. They were over one night for dinner, and they said, so we arrived at a place where we're looking for a surrogate. So we're actively looking for a surrogate. Now they were not asking me, they were not asking us, this was just us sharing life stuff. And they said, we've asked some family members, and so far everyone has said no, so we're now in the process of looking for a surrogate. So surrogacy works, how many of you guys are familiar with surrogacy at all? Has anyone been surrogate?
I haven't been, but I have a daughter through surrogacy.
Oh, cool. Okay, that's cool too. This is the other side. I like this too. So surrogacy goes in a couple of ways. So you can go through what they were trying to do. Was their first option was to find their own surrogate. Okay, so this is without going through an agency. They're going to find their own person and they're going to use that person. Or use sounds bad, but really not they're using a person. Okay, so they're going to use the person. Or you can go through an agency. Okay, you can go through a fertility clinic. You can get connected, but they don't have them. So now they're looking at either finding somebody or going through an agency. And sometimes I say things when I shouldn't, but my husband was outside with my husband's husband, and I remember exactly what I was doing. I was bent over in the freezer getting something out, and I turned around to her and I said, I'd consider doing that for you. And she's like, what? You wouldn't? I was kind of like, what? Yeah, I would. Yeah, I said it. Like, I would. So it kind of came out, and I mean, my husband and I had this conversation a year and a half before, so I was like, I'm pretty sure we're still on the same page. I'm hoping at this point we are. So I mentioned it to her, and I said, but also, this is a huge decision for you guys, right? Like, this isn't just the surrogate that makes this decision. This is the family that makes this decision. So my cousin is literally going to be trusting her unborn child in my body. She's going to be trusting that I'm making good life choices, that I am taking care of myself, that I'm so it's an equal decision. It's not just a surrogate's decision. So I said, well, why don't you think about it? Let me tell my husband what I did. And let us know when you guys have had a chance to talk about it and where you guys land on this. So the next day she calls me. She's like, we're in, let's do it. I'm like, oh crap, okay, I gotta figure this one out. So she tells me they're in. So they're happy to use me for this if my husband and I are down. So I said, okay, this feels like a lot. Can I take a week and get back to you? She's like, of course, take as much time as you need, let us know. So I don't want to call myself a hasty person, but maybe I am. I like to make decisions now. I don't like to wait. I like to make a decision, move forward, get it done. That's how my life has functioned. I've done well in my life to be that kind of person. For some reason, and I know the reason is God, but I felt as soon as she said yes, I knew I had to pump the brakes a bit. And I've used the term pump the brakes a lot in my business. When I feel like momentum is growing too fast in the business and I pump the brakes to slow us down. It's the only time I've ever felt this sense of slowing. Otherwise, I like to go fast and I like to get things done and I like to check off things on my to-do list. As soon as she said yes, I felt like I had to pump the brakes on this and really slow down. So I said, yeah, that's great. Can I take a week and get back to you? I need to figure this out. So I then tell my husband what I've done. And God bless him, he's kind and gracious, and he's like, no, cool, I'm glad you said that, let's think about it. And I said, now before we talk about this, him and I make a decision, I want us to both take 7 days, this is what we chose. It was a Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday was the next Sunday. And I said, let's take a week, let's think on this, and then next Sunday before the game starts, we'll have a chat and we'll see where we land on this. I tend to be in my house, you probably won't believe this, I'm the chatty one in my house, and I am like the go-getter, like I want to lead us forward, and I'll table plan, and my husband, God bless him, is like, yeah, go, send it, like I'll follow if you go. So I didn't actually want to lead this. I didn't want to be the leader in this because I knew that, and we all know this, when you are pregnant, you are not doing it alone. you need your support, you need your people, you need your husband to be on board. If your kids are older, you need your kids to kind of be on board with what's happening. And so I didn't want to make the call on this because I knew that it would affect him in a different way than it was going to affect me. And I didn't want to think during this process that I was the only reason we were doing this. I didn't want to feel like he was resenting me for this decision when it was hard. And I needed him to be kind of leading us first in this. So he said, don't talk to me about it. Don't even tell me what you think about this. I want you to take a week and think about it, do whatever you need to do to figure this out, and then next Sunday we'll talk about it. So I honestly have no idea what he did to process it, because I never asked. But he took his week, and then I took my week. So my week consisted of a lot of thinking, a lot of researching, and trying to figure out what the heck surrogacy was, because I really had no idea what it was. Also, FYI, there's not a lot of information out there. So it wasn't like there was a whole bunch of stuff that I found that was helpful. But I looked as much as I could to see what it would look like. And then I spent a lot of time just talking to God. And so I said before, like, my relationship with God is like my first thing. I grew up in a Christian home, always taught all things. And then when I was in my early 20s, I went away into YWAM. Does anyone know what YWAM is? Yeah, a few YWAM. Okay. So it's Youth with a Mission. And the way they used to do their program, I have no idea if it's how they do it still, but it was 3 months of like a discipleship training program kind of thing, and then 3 months overseas. So I spent 3 months in Seattle, where you do kind of like a lot of intensive, just like reading into the Bible, you have lots of speakers come in, and then 3 months I did in Zambia. During this time in my life, I discovered that God actually wanted a personal relationship with me. That this really wasn't about a God of a church or a God of a religion, but it was a very intimate and personal relationship that he was wanting with me. And it completely changed the way that I saw God. It completely changed the way that I saw my relationship with him, with who I actually was as a human. And it turned in me this leap of actually looking to God for answers and having a relationship like a friend, and just talking and being in a regular relationship. So my week of trying to figure out what I was going to do spent a lot of time just talking with God. I would walk with my dog. Just like, hey God, if you could just give me a really clear sign, that would be great. If you could just write it in the clouds of what I'm supposed to do, I would super appreciate that, because this feels super big. And one night sitting in bed, I'm sitting, praying, talking, trying to figure out what we're doing, and I've never had this happen in my life before, but out of nowhere, I have this very, very, very clear vision of me in a hospital bed and my cousin and her husband standing in front of me with the baby. And at that moment, I knew, dang it, I have to do it. Like, this is clearly the road that I need to be taking. So I knew in that moment, my answer was yes. I knew I needed to do this. And I then met with my husband on Sunday, and I said to him, okay, you tell me first. You go first, and then I'll tell you my answer. And he says, of course, why wouldn't we do this? This is, of course, the right answer. This is the only right thing to do. And my answer is 100% yes. So I'm like, okay, we're doing it. We're going to do the thing. So that was in February of 2021. It's like a year and a half ago. And then here it goes. So here's how the story goes. Here's how surrogacy goes. So we said yes in February. We then decided in March to tell our parents, because this is my cousin, so our dads, our brothers. And we decided we would tell everyone all at once, so it didn't get, pushed through the family at different speeds. So we tell my husband's mom. She's wonderful, super encouraging, super jacked for us. Like, this is great. My cousin tells her parents. Everyone's excited. I'm now expecting the same response. So I tell my parents. My parents are devastated. They are angry at me. They have a whole bunch of stuff on why I should not be doing this. There's a whole lot of backstory to all that, but it killed me. And I am I'm the firstborn. I'm an A personality. I like to keep people happy. And my parents are my biggest people to keep happy. If they're happy, then I'm good. I'm also almost 40, so maybe I should go to that. But still working through that. But it killed me. They were upset. They didn't want me to do it. They said that I was making horrible decisions for our family and how this would affect everything. It was horrible. It was horrible. And meanwhile, I was expecting that this was going to go in a total opposite direction. I was expecting this was going to be like congratulations, this is wonderful, what you're gonna build into this family, like I'm expecting all of this, and it was the complete opposite. And I also tell you guys this because the one thing I learned in this journey, aside from how incredible science and God are when they work together, is that because I was so sure of my decision, because I had spent that time really, really pursuing what the right decision was, even though my parents, who I wanted to please more than anything, completely disapproved of this, it didn't sway me in one tiny way. There wasn't an ounce of me that thought, oh, maybe this is, I knew with like complete certainty that this was the right choice. And we have since worked through a lot of the stuff. It was not easy, it was not fun, it was messy and ugly, and that's why I say the surrogacy thing for me was a hot mess, because it was a whole hot mess of a lot of stuff that I had to deal with. But I was so sure. I was so sure that this was the right thing to do. And what I learned from that was, and as I thought about kind of lessons that I've taken from the surrogacy, was how often are we all making choices every day where we're just responding to things and we're not actually taking time for ourselves to think about ourselves and what we actually need, what actually brings us joy, what is good for us, what's good for our souls. And because I took that week to do that, when I was faced with a huge obstacle, I was still certain in my answer, and I feel like it's because I was prepared for that. I wasn't responding to them emotionally. I was completely prepared for what I needed to do. So I would just encourage all of you guys, if you're go-getters and you like to go fast, and oftentimes with little kids, that's just the speed of life that you're living at. You're just going faster because there's kids that you're trying to keep up with. But to try to slow down a hot minute and try to just take a minute for yourself and think about what you need on a daily basis. Because when you can actually be aware of what you need and what is good for you, you can face stuff a little bit easier when it's super tough. So that was the biggest thing that I took at this point in the journey with me, was that, holy cow, because I knew what I wanted in this and because I knew it was right, I had the certainty I could face this. So that was March. March was disgusting and ugly, and it was hard, and my heart hurt the whole time, and I still knew I was doing this. So then in April, we started all of the medical stuff. So I had to go through some physical stuff, and I had to go through some mental stuff, so that they knew that I was physically and mentally sound, that I wasn't a crazy person. And also they had to make sure that I wasn't being coerced in any way. So they asked me a lot of questions about if I was being, if they've offered me money for this, so that was part of it. And then my poor cousin and her husband had to go through the process of IVF, of actually getting everything done. And so because this baby that I carried was there, so his sperm, her egg, this was no part of me, was this baby, it was all their baby. Has anyone here, this may be a bit personal, has anyone here gone through IVF stuff fertility? Okay. It's stupid sucks, and I had no idea. I was blessed to have 2 babies very easily. I wanted to have babies, we got pregnant, we had babies. And sitting in the fertility clinic in Calgary, it was the most somber, the most unloving almost environment that I have been in a very long time. You don't feel cared for, you don't feel loved, you feel like you were just you're just a number. You're just a sperm, you're just an egg. And it was so sad. And I remember saying to my husband at this point in all this, I just said, if this doesn't work, if this doesn't work, we don't actually end up being able to do this with them. I'm grateful that I was able to see a glimpse of what people go through to have a baby. And maybe there's a part of us at some point in our life need to be kind of looking into how we can support people that are going through it, because it is not, people are not walking into that fertility clinic and being welcomed with open arms. You're not being hugged and loved on, and when things don't work, they're not telling you what's going to be okay. It's just, okay, well, here's the next medical thing we're going to do, and here's the next pill you're going to take. And I was just saying earlier to some gals here, so we tried for our first transfer in October, okay? So that was in April, we started all the testing. In May, we kind of got the okay and everything was good. Then there's a whole ton of legal stuff we had to fill out. So we both had separate lawyers, we both had to have all our legal stuff filled out on who does what, and part of the interesting part for that, me as a surrogate, was that at certain points in the surrogacy of pregnancy, I couldn't travel, so I couldn't go beyond our province at one point. And then as I got closer to my due date, I couldn't get within, I think I had to be within 20 kilometers of a hospital. So that gets funny in life, right? Because you're just living your own baby, you're just do what you want. And I was like, oh, this is weird. At some point I have to stop doing the thing. And I have to think about, am I leaving the province? How far am I from the hospital? Can I go camping that weekend? I don't know. So how far am I? So we did all this legal stuff. And then in June, I think, in July, I started all the meds. So as the surrogate, once they had got the eggs and the sperm they needed from there, then they start working on, and literally it's working on my body. There's not a lot of care, it's just a lot of pumping me full of pills. So I started meds late July, and I had to be on meds for about 2 months, because what they did, because you're going to learn a whole bunch here, okay? Yeah. So, because there's 2 types of transfers you can do. You can do a fresh transfer, which means that the sperm and the egg haven't been frozen yet, or you can do a frozen transfer. And my husband's a funny dude. He had one request in all of this, and he's like, can we please just not have her sick in the summer? Like that was it. That's all I wanted. He didn't want to be sick in the summer. We love to camp and be outside. He's like, I just don't want her sick. Well, sorry, buddy. I turned out to be sick. But that was July, August, September. And I was on all these, I was going, first I did the drop right down, and then they jacked me up, and then they had to kind of figure, okay, now we leveled out. And then they had to get the transfer booked for exactly that it would be 5 days, because we take out the egg, they get out the sperm, they want to make sure that they've connected, that they've done their thing, that it's a viable embryo. There's a whole bunch of testing that goes on for what embryos are actually viable, which ones are not. So that takes about, I don't know, 2 or 3 days. So like every day you're waiting to hear, like, is it good? Did we get one? Did we get an embryo that's going to work? And then the question of, are they going to put in 1 or 2? Because if it's a perfect embryo, and there's certain grades that they grade them on, and I don't remember that, they will only do 1. Because if it's a perfect embryo, they want to have the best chance. If it's a good embryo, then they'll put in 2, right? Which is different from me, because that could be twins, people. So we're waiting, right? Kind of trying to figure out like how many are going in, what day is it going to be, do we have childcare, right? Like there's all these things that all of a sudden we're thinking about. So that was in mid-October. We're going through this journey. Finally get the transfer done. And I don't want to blame the fertility clinic, but here's what I'll tell you. My husband is one of the most laid-back dudes ever. He is super chill. He's hilarious. He keeps the environment light wherever we go. And the fertility clinic had made this such a medical procedure that when he asked me if I wanted him to go with me, I was like, no, it's fine. It's just another medical thing, right? They're just going to crank me open and shove it in, right? Which at this point, I had it done enough times. They've checked all the things in me enough times that it's like, who cares who's there? It doesn't matter. So we go in, and I went, my cousin, I think it was just me and my cousin actually went. Her husband didn't come, my husband didn't come. We go in for the transfer, get the transfer done. The transfer was very quick and easy. It's like when you're getting a pap done? Like it's very similar to that. It's just you open up and they show you the little embryo in the magnifying glass thing before, so you can see that it's there. And then they put in a big needle thing, they put it inside of you. And that's it. And they're like, well, to have this nurse described it to me. She said, because I'm like, can I walk? Can I jump? Like, will it fall out? Like, what? How do I do this? And she's like, I just want you to think about it being like like you have a peanut butter sandwich, and this is like a piece of dust in the middle of it. So that's how stuck in there it is. So it's not going to fall out. Live your life. I'm like, okay, cool. So I just go right back to normal, right? Like nothing has happened. Actually, what I did do is I went and got McDonald's fries after, because apparently that helps. That's good luck, right? See? So I did the pineapple. I got the sauce. I did all the things. Okay, I did all the things. There's all these things they tell you to do if you're doing surrogacy. So I was like, what do they call those 5 steps, right? And I was like, the sauce, the pineapple, McDonald's fries, there's other things too. But I was like, I'm doing McDonald's fries. Yes, if you're telling me to do it, I'll do it. And then I went back to normal. And then 2 weeks later, we found out it didn't work. And that's a whole, like I'm running out of time already, so I'm not going to tell you guys that whole emotional roller coaster. But that's a whole piece of it too, when it doesn't work. Because now you've essentially had a loss. I've never had a loss before. I've only ever had 2 babies. So that was a whole thing. I was dealing with that. Anyway, so what did we do? It didn't work. So I get a phone call and she says, didn't work. So stop all the meds and let your body go back to normal. I'm like, okay, sure. So I just stopped all the meds. And now I'm letting my body drop down again and try to get back to normal, because what they want my body to do now is they want it to do a full cycle to get back to my regular system. Then we're going to go back on meds, try it again. So we opted to wait until January. So this is the end of October. So technically we could have done a transfer mid-December, but it's mid-December and Christmas is coming and there's too many things. So, and I wanted to have wine at Christmas. So I was like, you know what, we're going to wait till January to do this. So we waited till January. I went back on all the meds. My husband was with us, and we made it a fun, we made it a good day, we made it a joyful day. We went out for lunch after, and it was a celebration day, and it wasn't a medical day. And we changed it from being this intense, really somber feeling medical procedure to, like, my husband had the nurses, like, one nurse was laughing so hard she was crying, like trying to keep it together, and she's crying. She's like, that was the best transfer I've ever done. And so, I mean, maybe it helped, I don't know, but it made it feel more like there was a baby being created, not something was just being shoved up inside of me. So that was mid-January. We found out the end of January 31st. That worked. Meanwhile, I peed on, like, all the pee tests. Like, every day I'm peeing on sticks. So I'm like, this has got to work, this has got to work. So the 31st, we got our results back, our blood work back, that it worked. And I wasn't just pregnant, I was, like, super pregnant. Like, you know, the numbers they were like, whoa, like, it could be twins. And I was like, you better not be twins. You only put one in. It should not be twins. The only one. But, so that was the end of January. And then we were into pregnancy. So what I didn't tell you guys was when God gave me this clear vision that I was supposed to do this, I made a small deal with him because I thought that I could deal with God. And I said, I will do this, but if you can't, don't make me puke. It has to be a boy. Because I was sick with my girl. So I said, I'll do this, but you gotta promise me it's a boy. So then I won't get morning sickness, right? Because that's how life works. So God's great, he has a super great sense of humor. It was a boy, I've already told you guys this, it was a boy, so technically I won the deal. I was so sick because of all the hormones. So I spent from week 7 till week about 20. Just super, super sick. I either slept on the couch or I slept in bed. Goes back to when I said I wanted my husband to make this decision. I was so sick, you guys, that this poor man did all the things. He did all the things. He worked all day, he came home, he did dinner, he put the kids to bed, he did all the things. Thank the Lord we had girls playing in the house for us, because I was going to say the grace. But he did all the things. And during that time, I mean, I spent many, many days crying in bed, asking God why on earth he would do this to a human being. Like, saying out loud, like, I'm doing a good thing. Why are you making me sick? Like, this isn't fair. But all the while, that certainty that I had, it never wavered. It never, at one point, did I ever really think, did I make the right choice? I knew it was the right choice all the way along. And then we get to week 20, and then you're kind of getting excited, right? Because now there's like a little bump, and the mom and dad are now kind of like, okay, like we can get excited. Like we're having a baby, like it's really real now. So then they start getting excited, we start getting excited, and it's second trimester, right? So you're golden, right? You're not puking anymore, you're not huge, you can still put on your shoes, so life is good. And so that was a really good season. That was all through spring. It was good. We were just kind of working on growing this baby. Towards the end of that, when I started to, you're in that point of pregnancy when you're like, you know you look pregnant, but no one wants to say anything to you because they don't know if you're for sure pregnant, right? So they're looking at you like, oh, like, do I say something? Do I not say something? So we were a bit farther on where people had started saying something because this is a whole thing, right? So now I'm pregnant. I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, and people love to say to us, oh, you have a little brother or sister coming, right? Like, that's a whole part of this. So our kids are pretty chill. We're trying to be extremely honest with them through this whole process on what was happening and why we were doing this and where the baby was going to go afterwards. Sidebar, my daughter thinks this is how babies are made. So that's going to be a whole conversation that we have to have in a few years. Because she went to day home on one of the days of the transfers, I forget which one it was, and she said to all of her little pals, right, so a whole bunch of 5-year-olds together, she says, my mom's having a baby put inside of her today. right? Just like this is just what's happening in the world today. This is just normal. And so then naturally those 5 girls go home and they then share this information with their families at their dinner table. So I get a call from my friend and she's like, hey, thanks for that. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, I had to explain to my 9-year-old how surrogacy works because she was wondering how you were just having a baby put inside of you. So that was a whole kind of fun thing that we got to share this weird thing with people that most people never talk about.
Right? Thought for the longest time is that babies were made at doctors' offices.
Exactly, right? Doctors come out of it, they squeeze them in, right? That's how babies are made. It's easier to explain. So that was kind of fun. When we got to this point in pregnancy where I'm clearly pregnant, people start saying stuff. My daughter's the first one to be like, it's not ours, it's not ours. Like, she's like, not mine, I'm not a sister, no. My son's kind of like more chosen, but my daughter was adamant on making sure everybody knew around her that this was not our baby. And then my husband decided that the best thing to do in this situation was to make people super uncomfortable. So what he would do, and he did this many times, and I just wanted to play along with it, was we would be out somewhere and someone would say like, oh, congratulations. And now this is better if it happens with like an acquaintance where we kind of knew this person, but we didn't foil people at our gym. It was wonderful and he loved us. Because they kind of see my belly changing, right? They know we have other kids and so then they finally, they get the nerve to say something, right? And they're like, oh, congratulations, you guys. Like, you must be so excited. My husband's first response, totally dead-faced. He'd be like, it's not mine. And just let it hang. And he wouldn't say anything. He would just let it hang in the air. And then the poor person is like, oh my gosh, like, what do you say in response to this? And then the poor person looks at my husband like he's a saint, right? Because he's like, oh, you're staying with her, and it's not even really the good person here. My husband's next line is, it's her cousin's. Good. So well. Now, thankfully, he wouldn't let that one hang quite as long, and he would take this poor person off the hook and be like, oh, she's a surrogate. Oh, that's great. But we learned to kind of make some fun in this too. That it was like, yes, it was heavy, and there was a lot of hard emotions in it, and many tears. But there was also this joy in it too, that we had to find some fun in it. So then we got to about 35 weeks, and my body started doing all sorts of hot mess weird stuff. And I just knew something was going on there. You know, when you get to the point in pregnancy where you're like, stuff's moving in weird ways that it wasn't moving in last week, and now it's doing this weird thing. And so week 35, I started basically having to go to the hospital every day or every other day because there was just so much weird stuff happening. I had a lot of pain happening. My blood pressure was super high, but there was nothing that was indicating the baby had to come out right away. They were basically like, we'll just have it out. I was like, cool, no problem. I'll just keep. And now when school started, it was the first week back to school, right? So we had the kids back to school, sports had started again, we're doing all this, and maybe that's all part of it. But my body was just, something wasn't quite right. And from 30, so the baby was born at 38 and 2. So from 35 weeks to that point, so about 3 weeks, it was just so hard. It was just so hard, and I was so tired. And I remember getting to the doctor's offices, and they'd be like, how are you doing today? And I'd be like, I'm just so tired, you guys. Like, I'm so tired of being tired for somebody else. Like, I'm not even tired for myself. I'm just tired of being tired for them. Also, has anyone ever had pregnancy insomnia? Because what the hell is that? That is awful. I am a sleeper. I go to bed. Oh, I didn't have to prepare. I didn't need to get ready. I had it from March until that baby came out. I could sleep for only 2 or 3 hours a night, and then I would be awake. And it was just, I got so used to it. But by this point, right, by 35, 36, I was so tired. I was so exhausted. It was like, it was hard to just function. I only had 1 cup of coffee. So I couldn't do anything to help my case. But I just knew things were moving forward. So those last 3 weeks were super hard. Also super hard because I was managing my cousin's emotions, right? Because they're anticipating their baby being born. They're very concerned for their baby, which is completely fair. But I'm also in a lot of pain. And part of me just wants them to care about me and not just about the baby. My husband, this was the hardest time for him, of watching me suffer and feeling like no one cared. Of why don't they care about you? And I'm like, well, because it's their baby. They care about their baby, right? So it was a really weird kind of moving towards the delivery. It felt very different than when you're kind of getting excited and the anticipation and the baby's coming and it's all these things. And for us, it for sure felt more like a finish line. We're almost there. We've almost done it. We're so close to the end. So we're dropping, right? It's almost there. We're almost there. We're downhill. We got this. And my husband and her husband are just ramping up, right? Because the baby's coming and this is happening. And so it was the one time in the journey that I felt like we were really, really separate. And they were getting super excited, and we were just tired, and we were just ready to kind of be done. So I'll take 5 more minutes, and then I'll let you guys get to your thing. But I'm going to tell you all the gory details of delivery, because everyone always wants to know, who was in the room? Who was in the room? So I'll tell you who was in the room. So we ended up having to deliver in Red Deer. So I'll tell you the whole sequence of the day. So I went to a doctor's appointment at 11 on a Thursday. I went for an ultrasound at 2. I went back to the hospital at 4. They then told me to get directly to Red Deer, and I said, hold phone, I have pizza in the truck that I have to get home for the kids for dinner, so I need to do that, and I need to get my husband, because I'm not having a baby without my husband. That's just not part of the deal. So I convinced them to let me drive home. We were getting old, so I convinced them, let me drive home, I'm going to get my husband, I'm going to get my bag, I'm going to feed my kids, and I need my mother-in-law to get to the house so that I can leave my babies. She's like, okay, as long as you promise to go super fast. I'm like, sure, whatever, yeah, go super fast. But then she told me not to speed, so I was like, I don't know what she wants me to do. She wants me to speed and go fast or not? So I get home, I get the pizza dropped off. Our kids were actually at the hockey rink for hockey and stuff, so Grandma was there. So I kind of stepped on the ice, gave everyone a hug, and said, see you tomorrow. Now by this time the kids are jacked up, right? Because every day it is the question of, is it still in there, Mom? Is it still in there? I'm like, it's still in there. It still won't come out. It's stuck. So now they're at least excited. This is real. They know Mom is going to the hospital, the baby's coming out, Grandma's at the house, we're good, right? All the cards, everything aligned for that part of it. We left our house at 6. We got to the hospital in Red Deer at 7, and he was born at 10. So we moved things right along. So we got to the hospital, and what happened was he was measuring super small. We have since learned my placenta stops working at about 35 to 36 weeks. So all that pain that I was feeling was a real thing happening inside of me. And so he was super little. He was born, he was 5'8", so he was still healthy, but he was just a little tiny bean. And so when they did the ultrasound, they said, we just got to get him out. So they basically told when I got to the hospital, they said, we're going to induce you right now, but if you don't get this thing out, we're going to do a C-section. And I was like, oh, I will get this thing out. Let me tell you, I will do the thing. So they induced me, and because I've had babies before, my body kicked in very kindly and helped me. It's labor, and it sucks, and it's hard, and it's also wonderful. And we all have babies, right? You know, it's the hardest thing you're ever going to do, and yet it's the best thing you're ever going to do. So in the room with me, I wanted to labor just with my husband, because I said I don't need an audience for me being in pain. That is not something I need people around for. So I had my nurse, my husband, and then once it was go time, my cousin came over. So her husband doesn't do well with blood, so good luck for delivery. So he did not come in the room. He stayed outside. He said at one point, he's like, at one point I really thought that I wanted to come in because I really thought I should see it. He's like, then I heard Beth scream, and I thought, no, I'm gonna stay over here. Probably a good choice. So he came really quick, and he was healthy, and because they had an NICU team on standby because they thought he was going to be so little. So it was all quite dramatic. And he came out just a small little thing, but the little bugger had his hand up by his head, so that was rude. And I was like, all the things I've done for you, you couldn't just pull it down? Come on, man. So, but he was healthy, and we got settled that night in our room, and what happened for the room stay was because, here's how it works, I was the only patient, okay? So I was the patient, the baby had a bassinet, that's it. See, this is interesting. Our whole system around surrogacy is kind of messed up because that should have been a space that the parent should have had space to be with the baby, and I should have had space to sleep. So they put us, it's one morning, 4 adults,
one baby in a shared room that we're only allowed to use one of the beds. Because they're like, we're too full and someone's coming in the morning to use that bed, so you guys can't touch that side of the room. So I'm looking around and I'm like, well, this is bad math. Like, I'm not getting out of bed. I'm bleeding profusely. I'm staying in the bed. The baby has his spot, and where do the other 3 adults go? So what they had done is they'd given my cousin and her husband a room at the Ronald McDonald House, because technically their baby was a patient. So I just made a mad decision, and I just looked at both of the guys, and I just said, you guys go sleep at the Ronald McDonald House. There's no sense in 4 adults trying to sleep in here when there's no room. So I kicked them out, and then my cousin pulled up 2 chairs and squished them together and slept on the chair for the night. It was already 1:30 in the morning, so it wasn't like we were planning on sleeping. Oh, poor woman, she had no idea that she was getting herself into. I was like, well, I'm gonna put my earplugs in my mouth, so I'm gonna go sleep. So I did my thing. So she sat up, and the nurses come in every 3 hours, right? And they poke you and feed the baby, do all the things. So that was that night. And I laid in bed at one point because I had prepared to feel a whole bunch of stuff. When this baby came out, I prepared to feel loss, I prepared to feel relief, I had all these emotions. You know what I felt? Tired. So very tired. And I just wanted to close my eyes and go to sleep, and I didn't feel any of the emotions hadn't really hit me at all. And I just laid, I just felt it. Literally, I was like, alright, well, I'm putting in my earplugs, so I need to hear baby cry. I'm doing this, I had an iPad, I put that on my I'll see you in the morning. Best of luck to you. But I woke up at one point and baby was sleeping, and my cousin had dozed off in the chair, and I was starving. I was so hungry, and so I called the nurse and I was like, "Can I have some toast? Like, I'm just dying. My stomach's growling." And so I'm laying there in bed eating my toast, like 3 in the morning, and I just look over and see this little baby alive. And it wasn't my, exact vision of me in the bed with my cousin and our husband with the baby, but it was me in bed with the baby. And I lay there and was just in awe that it was a real live baby. Like, it was alive, and it was outside of me, and it wasn't mine. And all these things that we worked so hard to make happen for 1.5 years, and we did all these things, it worked. And it was the first time that it actually felt like it worked. Even when I was pregnant and I was growing a baby and he was healthy, I never had that sense of, we did it. We made baby. This is incredible. But I lay there and just watched him sleep, and I have no attachment. I don't feel any sort of like he's mine. Like I need to go steal him from their home. I just have this deep, deep pride in that he is here. And now seeing him, he's 2 weeks old now. He's getting past that like warning stage, right, where they start to get like a little bit of chunks, and he's just so cute. And my daughter now is like in love with him. In love. She's like, when can we go see him? When can we see him? How is he doing? Can we buy him a toy? I'm like, this is funny because you were the girl who hated him. Like, you did not like this child. So all that to say, if you would have asked me Thursday, driving to the ultrasound, if I would have done it again, I would have told you, hell no. Never in my life would I do this again. It was awful. If you would have asked me Friday, driving home from the hospital, if I would do it again, absolutely. It is 100% worth it. It is the best thing you could ever do. It is the hardest thing I have ever done. But seeing a real live human who is so loved and so wanted, and he's just got the best life. He's got the parents who love him the most, and he's got a whole tribe of people who love him so much. And it worked. Like, it worked. And it was a crazy experience. I will answer any and all questions you guys have about all the things. You make me so happy. But it was the best thing I've ever done. And it was the hardest thing, but to see a little human boy is the only thing I felt in that moment was gratitude. That things worked. And I was able to be a part of his life. And he'll always owe me. If he grows up to be a rock star, he owes me. If he grows up to be a delinquent, I don't know him. No part of that. There's